This weekend on the original Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brew House.
Let me tell you why I'm thankful to be able to do what I do.
I love watching sports, so let me just watch sports.
I'll tell you why Woody Allen was right. 90% of life is just showing up.
And trying to find the reasons for why Jim Boeheim is just so great. Join us this weekend on the original Rochester Press Box. The Brew House was created to capture and share with you the long history of the Genesee Brewery. But the brewery itself isn't half as interesting as the beer and the people who make it. Visit GeneseeBrewHouse.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome into the original Rochester Press Box, presented by the mighty Genesee Brew House. I'm Bill Pucko, and to start off, it's first to welcome in Pat Duffy, who's been here many times before from the Breakroom and WCMF as a regular panelist on the show, and we're thrilled to have you, man.
I'm excited. My wife's just a little worried about your health insurance, my lower back, from carrying Catalana now that I'm going to be on every single week.
And we can look forward to more exchanges like that. My co-host, Mike, I'm sorry about that.
I cannot put into words how I feel about this.
Okay, then let's not. And it's a pleasure to welcome into Chris Iverson, the now new head coach of the Rochester Razorsharks, who are 5-0 under his tutelage. And let me give people the short version of your story, because I think it's really fascinating. Local guy, Marcus Whitman High School, played some basketball, was an office staff member of the Razorsharks, was promoted to assistant coach by Rod Baker, and 7 years later you become head coach, which is quite a journey, isn't it?
Yeah. It's been a long 7 years, but happy that today is here.
When did it occur to you that a professional head coaching job was in your future?
Actually, honestly, probably when Rod left. That was kind of something I started making a goal for myself anyways at that point, was when he left. Then I said, you know what, I've got a legit shot at this at some point, whether it was when he left or 4 years from then.
Do you have a style? Are you good at it?
Not yet. My mother says I swear too much, but so I'm working on that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and to do it here. I mean, did you think about going somewhere else if you needed to?
Yeah. I've talked to a handful of other teams, whether it was other minor leagues, other couple teams in the D League. I've had conversations with over the past probably 5 or 6 years, and for whatever reason, it never worked out. But you're right. It is nice that the first time is here.
Pat, you think Rochester Razorsharks? What do you think of?
It's a great product. They've been, 11 years now you guys have been in?
Yeah.
I think that if there's one issue, the only thing they're a victim of is the quality high school basketball that now exists in Rochester, New York. The team shows up, 11 years ago. This is right after, you got the Tyler Ralph and those kind of teams in McCoy. And if I'm a guy who likes basketball, which I am, and I've gone to Sharks games, do I want to go see a guy that's going to be playing Division I basketball in a couple of years at a high school here, or do I want to go see guys that have done it a couple of years ago? And I don't think people understand how good the ball is. And the fact that there are talented kids here in town that are playing for $3 a night may hamper the crowds you're going to get. But I don't think that has anything to do with the quality of the basketball.
No, I think your problem is the league. And I think leagues, I guess, is the way I would say it. And it's always been the case. We've talked about this, whether it was the Rhinos, the women's pro soccer team. It doesn't matter in that way. What the Red Wings, and I've mentioned this before, and the Red Wings and the Amerks have gone for them, is stable leagues, and everybody knows it. And the problem I've always had in terms of the Razorsharks is, it's happened. It's happened where teams don't show up, or who can't make payroll, or guys not there, and that hurts. And the team is so good that it's almost to the point where you say, what is it about the whole product? And I think that is what hurts you.
And I think that's an overall issue with minor league basketball in itself, is that the problem is anybody thinks they can run a team. Anybody thinks they can go get a $20,000 sponsor and think that that's enough. That's not. That's our per diem. For a season. And you get these owners that think they know what they're doing because they think it's cool. It's something they can tell their buddies over coffee or at a bar. that they can have this conversation. Oh yeah, I own a pro basketball
It
team.
creates a level of dysfunction that you don't see
Yeah.
in these other teams, though. And how do you combat that? You're right in the middle of it now.
Yeah, I've always been a believer is in worrying about yourself. We worry about what happens here. Just the other day in the locker room, I said, what happens in their locker room doesn't have any effect on us. We still go out and play and, do this and that. But you're right, it is frustrating at times, and I think it's been a little bit cyclical. When the league first started, it was awesome. It was a battle every night. Guys at each team were making decent money. So you didn't have to worry about that kind of stuff. But then as it goes, teams kind of leave. You got to fill that spot. We need a team in this region for travel purposes. So okay, how about you guys take that spot? And then now we've got a travel partner at least. But then you start having to worry about other things.
Cool. We're going to talk a little Syracuse basketball when the original Rochester Press Box continues. For over 25 years, Hillside Work Scholarship Connection has empowered youth to embrace their dreams of college and careers. Thanks to a dedicated staff and employment partners, every year Hillside helps more than 4,000 young men and women move closer to their life goals. Welcome back. This is the original Rochester Press Box, presented by the mighty Genesee Brew House, and this portion of the Press Box has been brought to you by our friends at the Hillside family of agencies. Syracuse basketball. They've turned things around, haven't they, Pat?
Why is everybody so surprised by this every single year? I mean, Jim Boeheim is a legendary college basketball coach because Jim Boeheim is a great basketball coach. He's on that Team USA coaching roster for a reason. Yet it seems like every year when things get turned around and they start slow and they do well, everyone's like, oh my gosh, look at how great Jim Boeheim is. I think it may be the product of we've had him for so long that maybe we don't appreciate how good he is. Because, I mean, look, he took an Eric Devendorf and Andy Rauten's team and made it respectable. He was going to do it with this squad if he had his time when he got back from suspension.
I don't know if I get what he brings to the team.
I tell you
I've
what,
never understood that.
I think he's brought something back this year. I think he's rejuvenated a little bit, and I think the suspension changed him a little bit. I think he had a little time away, and I think it sped up that clock in his mind. He's always, he's Jim Boeheim. It's just like Pat's saying. I mean, this is who he is. But when he was away from the team for that little bit, I think he realized how much he missed it. And I think he's been more engaged. And I will say this, I think he's done a fantastic job with this team. I like the way they play. You can't say that about Syracuse teams every year. They play very hard for him. He's done it with a limited bench. He's accepting some of those mistakes a little bit more, which I think is going to help his guys. Like, I think this Frank Howard kid can really play, and I think he's got to get him some more minutes in some of these games. So I'm on board with them, and I think it's been an impressive show, and I think he's rejuvenated.
I think you're right, Mike. When he was gone, I think you're right. I think it rejuvenated him a little bit, and he's coming back with something to prove. Not only being re-energized by the time away, but coming back and say, well, I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
Well, what's he do? I get a whiz-bang recruiter and a guy who's X's and O's and can do all these things and stuff. I see Jim Boeheim, and I know he's successful, and I know he's good. I don't know why.
I think let's face it, he knows the game, he knows his system, and the guys do buy into his system. I mean, you watch him play, they do. And what we've seen in the last couple of years is that we hadn't seen maybe in the past. Guys are getting better under his watch, and you couldn't say that all the time. He brought talented guys in, but you look at it, Rakeem Christmas became a really, really good player. Now, he's got help and all. Michael Benajay, to me, has become an NBA player, And I don't know if you would have said that a year or so ago when he came to Syracuse.
Well, I think you're seeing it more this season because, let's face it, after all the violations and losing scholarships, he had decommits. He's got guys that weren't ideally his guys now having to buy into his system. He doesn't have prima donna guys on the court. He's got guys that are listening to Boeheim because they want court time. And I think that maybe other coaches around the NCAA are going to see, well, if Boeheim could do this with this kid, maybe I don't want to push for that one-and-done kid like everybody else does.
And to stick up for Mike Hopkins a little bit here, because I don't know how it's going to work out for Mike. He never had full control of that team. And even Jim Boeheim recognized that. He knew he was the caretaker for a little bit. It was Jim's team.
And the players know it.
They absolutely know it. And they were all in that. And it's almost like, yeah, whatever happens, we know because coach is coming back and then we're going to do this. So that was a tough spot for them, but they've been great since he came back.
Just quickly, give me one thing you take as a coach now, professional basketball coach, you take from Jim Boeheim and try to apply it.
It's just practicing hard. I've been fortunate enough to be able to go to a few of their practices over the years. And he's always been somebody I've looked up to as a coach, But, they always practice hard, no matter what. No matter if they have a game tomorrow or they had a game yesterday or they've got 4 games coming up, they're always practicing hard.
This portion of the original Rochester Press Box is brought to you by our friends at the Hillside Family of Agencies. Like it or not, when we return. As we go to break, it is time for the Turnbull Heating and Air Conditioning Trivia Question of the Week. When you're searching for a local heating and air conditioning contractor, look no further than one of the most reliable teams in the area at Turnbull Heating and Air Conditioning. Is called Turnbull at 343-2005. As we come back from the break, time for the answer to the Turnbull Heating and Air Conditioning Trivia Question of the Week. When you're searching for a local heating and air conditioning contractor, look no further than one of the most reliable teams in the area at Turnbull Heating and Air Conditioning. Just call 343-2005. See New York in a whole new way. Amtrak is offering a 15% discount for all travel inside New York State and to Montreal. Visit Amtrak.com for the See New York discount. Safe, comfortable, affordable, and easy. Amtrak. Enjoy the journey. Welcome back to the original Rochester Press Box, presented by the mighty Genesee Brew House. And this portion of the Press Box brought to you by Amtrak Trains. Enjoy the journey. Like it or not, Mike, the Bills going for a quarterback in the upcoming draft.
Yeah, I don't like it in the first round because I think at 19, if that's where they're picking, I don't like that spot. I think if they had an earlier pick, maybe you take one of those shots or you wait till a later round. I think they already have a young quarterback that they're looking to develop. Maybe they take another one later, 3rd or 4th round, take another shot at a guy. But I would say no. I don't want him taking a quarterback.
Tyrod buys you a little time, doesn't he?
I think he's your guy. I think he's got to be your guy. There's that old saying, Mike Catalana, right? The only thing worse than no quarterback? 2 quarterbacks. And I'm hearing all these whispers, right? We're going to bring RG3 in. We're going to kick the tires on him. Don't. Why would you do that? Let the kid get comfortable. Let Tyrod settle in. If it's not his team, we're in the same spot we've been for the last 15 years. What's another year? What?
At this point, is Griffin a threat?
Well, I think he's never shown the ability to be a good backup, right? I mean, they basically sat him down and kept him away from the field in Washington at the end. Maybe he can become something. If they didn't have Tyrod Taylor, if they didn't have a guy who's a starter, maybe that's a move you make and then you bring in another veteran.
But that still scares me because you got that Bills mentality. If you don't have a starter, you bring in a guy like RG3, which to me says he could be a potential starter, which I don't think he will ever be again. I don't want him back at my quarterback because there's that fan mentality which leaks into coach mentality of, well, maybe this guy can be something if Tyrod goes down and he gets hot. He can't. Let your guy succeed and leave it alone.
Well, Tyrod, I think Tyrod's earned that spot. I think the way he played this past year, I think that's his spot now. RG3 stuff, as a Bills fan, they want to bring him in and let him compete for a backup spot. I don't have any issue with that. It gets a couple more headlines maybe.
Yeah, like it or not, Duffy. 20 years after the fact, Peyton Manning indiscretions as a college kid.
Hey, breaking news: professional athletes are bad people. Is this new to anybody? I mean, it happened 20 years ago. I know it's heinous sounding stuff, but let's be honest. All of us here on the stage heard that story 10 years ago. We all knew that story. Why is this a story now? It's another one of these, and I'm not defending what he allegedly did, but it is totally reeks of some writer trying to make a name for himself by taking shots at a guy who could not be higher in his career right now. And yeah, it bothers me a little bit. If we weren't bothered by it a decade ago, why am I bothered by it now?
I don't know where the limitations is.
Yeah.
The time frame.
I mean,
you always have to say, to be politically correct, says, oh, well, I absolutely hate what he did, but, and there's always a but.
Okay.
It was 20 years ago.
Jim Brown just turned 80 years old. Are we going to go back and talk about his indiscretions and charges of violence against women? I mean, I'm making a more of an extreme point because some of that's back 30, 40, 50 years ago. But I do wonder about that part of it. But in this day and age now, I think we're going to see more and more of this. I think everything is now ending up one way or the other as fair game. And I don't like it in that sense because how far back are you going to go? What are you going to look into? But to your point, that doesn't mean I sit there and go, oh, Peyton Manning, he's a wonderful guy. I don't know what kind of guy. I don't know him. We know the image that he portrays.
I think
but
that's
I don't
important to constantly remind yourself is that what we see isn't necessarily what we get because we only see the surface.
What they want us to see, usually.
Yeah. This portion of the original Rochester Press Box has been brought to you by Amtrak Trains. Enjoy the journey. Unfinished Business is next. The Rochester Press Box Stat of the Week, brought to you by Cariglio's Pizza, with 5 locations serving the Rochester area. Visit carigliospizza.com today.
And you don't need to be Native American to realize it is offensive. And it's not politically correct. It's the right thing to do.
He was an idiot for throwing him that pitch. The guy's phenomenal. He had no reason to give him anything, especially a fastball to hit.
It's simply that these two guys, Ronaldo and Tom Brady, are too good looking.
I like it, just don't admit to it.
Everybody wants to hate on the best in the world. You know, he's here to stay, and he wants to build something big time.
The bottom line is, still nobody's going to like A-Rod.
The new caramel macchiato at Dunkin' Donuts. Let handcrafted layers of espresso, milk, and caramel-flavored swirl uplift your mood. Indulge in a hot or iced macchiato today. America runs on Dunkin'.
Welcome back to the original Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brew House. This portion brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. Unfinished business. Pat.
Well, Bill, going off of the Peyton Manning thing and LeSean McCoy story that won't go away and every bad thing that's happened with an athlete in the offseason. You know what I hate? Being a sports fan at this point. Because before I can put a jersey on or watch something or read an article online, I have to figure out if the guy that I cheer for on Sundays is a decent human being. Because that's what my wife and my buddies' kids are telling me. What happened to the day where I could just open a beer, sit back and watch a sporting event without worrying about Evander, Kane and allegations of a sexual assault or LeSean McCoy and allegations of punching a police officer and kicking him in the face? I just want to watch a game. Why are you taking this from me? You know, the publicity of all these sports, it's making it monstrous, right? The NFL is unstoppable and the NBA is having its best time in years and the NHL is on its way back. Well, the side effect of that is I can't enjoy the games because I'm not sure if the guy that I'm cheering for is a monster based on what my wife is reading. Can I have my sports bag, please?
What do you think? Was there a better day when Mickey Mantle used to go out and have a beer with Mickey Mantle after the ball game and he wouldn't report on any of his indiscretions? Was that a better day?
You know, it's scaring me a little bit because I agree with him.
Jeez. This is what happens when you bring me on too much.
See? No, and it does make, and especially from the perspective of reporting on things, you know, it's tiresome sometimes. In ours, you know what this was like. You come in and the news department is saying, hey, did you see this thing about the Bills? And I just gotten to the point where I know it's got a level of interest, but it is a little tiresome.
And they want you to lead the news with it. And I used to hate that. I'd resist it with everything.
It always is because they say this is bigger than the games themselves. I'm with you. I wish we had that. It's naive to think that'll ever come back, though.
What do you got first, Chris?
About 11 years ago, I took a trip to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for my first scouting trip in this career of basketball. And on that trip, a guy I was with asked me what I wanted to do with my, at the time, front office job with the Razorsharks. And I told him, I said, I want to coach. And his response was, why? At the time, I really didn't have an answer for that. But over the past few years, I've realized why I want to coach and why I do this and why I get up every day and go to the gym with the guys and spend time on game days at the BCA. And that guy that I was riding with was Rod Baker, who had given me my first opportunity to coach at the level that we're at now. And so I just want to take this opportunity to, personally say thank you and how much fun this is. And now I'm in it. So
We all love Rod Baker. In fact, Rod had that seat in the very first show we did, the original Rochester Press Box. The very
boy.
first one we did, Rod had that seat. Mike?
Nice. Evander Kane. Now, Pat mentioned it, but I'm talking about the hockey issue here. It was the other day where he missed practice, and it was the second time he's missed practice. And I had some fans text and send things on Twitter, and a lot of them would refer to things and say, what's the big deal? It's just practice. And while I understand the mentality of a fan sometimes, you're only worried about when he's playing in the game and when he's on the ice and what he can do for the team. But I think sometimes what gets lost, and Coach certainly knows this, is what it does inside the room. And that's the most important relationship. Guys want you to be accountable. Guys want you to show up. I love Evander Kane as a player. I love watching him play. I think he can be a superstar, or a star at least, in Buffalo. But you do have to show up. You have to be there. And when you start doing things like missing practice, inside the room is where you're going to have problems. And those are the kind of things that are tough to overcome.
Yeah, and it sort of fits with what Pat says,
I'm not saying, he went, he can go have fun in Toronto, but show up for practice, because you can tell that's the kind of thing that bothers the other players.
But here's the thing. Some guys have the talent to just come out and do it, and other guys have to practice really hard to get where they are. I kind of get where Evander was coming from.
I say I agree with him, and he takes the last
This is no
shot.
fun when you agree with me, Mike.
Unfinished Business has been brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. Thank you for joining us at the original Rochester Press Box. Pat, good job. Welcome aboard.
Thanks, guys.
Mike?
I quit.
And good luck, Coach, with the Razorsharks and
Appreciate
your
it.
5-0 start. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week on the original Rochester Press Box.